Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome back to another Mario Party ranking video. It's been a while since I've said that, hasn't it? My last Mario Party ranking video was back in 2016, when I ranked all of the Mario Party games individually, and after I gave a top 10 best and worst list of all the minigames in each Mario Party installment. These lists were honestly a lot of fun to make, and people have asked me to do more lists over time for the other Mario Party games, but I was just never in the right mindset to do that for a couple of reasons. For one, I was a bit back and forth with all of the awkward and cringy skits I put in during those rankings, and two, I feel like my ranking criteria were a little inconsistent at times. Also, even though I did try to put a huge amount of my own analytical assessment in each list, I feel like I could have gone a bit deeper at times. For example, instead of just doing a top 10 best and worst, why not just give an entire game ranking for every minigame? It would take a lot more work for sure, but I feel like to really get a feel for how I think about these minigames, you kinda need the full story. So today I have for you my entire minigame ranking for every minigame in Mario Party 1. I'm not going to bother with any skits or live camera footage this time, and even if you did watch my original top 10 series, there is no guarantee that the list will be the same. Hell, if anything, there are some pretty significant falls from grace this time, and some other minigames that actually did quite well in making it a bit higher. There might be some familiar faces at the top and bottom for sure, but you'd be surprised with how much of an opinion can change in just 6 years. That's honestly another reason why I want to redo these lists, because my opinions have definitely changed over time, and I've considered many other aspects and factors of different minigames. Anyway, any minigame is eligible for this list, whether it's a 4-player, 1 vs 3, 2 vs 2, 1-player, and even bumper ball maze will be added as well. Basically, if it's selectable from the minigame house, it's going to be on this list. I don't have too much else to say about this, so let's just go ahead and get right into the magic, shall we? Number 50, Paddle Battle. Spinning the N64 control stick in a fast motion sucks as a control mechanic. You know it, I know it, so many blistered palms know it. The only ones who didn't were the developers of this game when they created these minigames, but after the lawsuits kept coming and after Nintendo had to send protective gloves to people to mitigate damages, yeah, I think it's no surprise we have these games at the bottom of the list here. I picked Paddle Battle specifically though because its other 1 vs 3 companion is, on average, shorter than this one. Paddle Battle will probably last longer, and unless the one player is ungodly good or bad at control stick spinning, there's not going to be a lot of big gains or losses here, which is just not worth it for the time this minigame takes. Also, requiring 15 coins for a clear in Minigame Island is really, really annoying. Number 49, Tug of War. You can almost say that 49 and 50 are tied because they are both down here for pretty much the same reason. Control stick spinning sucks and Tug of War is not much better at all. There's likely more to lose or gain in this one than Paddle Battle, but the fact that it's much shorter I think does save it from being the absolute bottom pick, if that means anything here. Number 48, Bash and Cash. Bash and Cash is here for the sole fact that it is so unfair for the solo player. It's so easy to hit the single player even if they try to escape, and the game doesn't end until either the timer is up or until they lose every single coin they own. The game is also a bit unbalanced for the team of 3 as well, in the sense that when the player is hit, at least in the non-Bowser variation, the coin bags don't go directly to the player that hit them. They will get tossed and bounce around the room until someone collects it, which encourages players to walk around and try to swipe coin bags instead of doing any of the actual work, which can be a bit frustrating to work with. I just don't think all the pitfalls were really considered when this minigame was created, and I think that it really shows. Number 47, Piranha's Pursuit. Piranha's Pursuit is pretty much a one-player game. The team of 3 really has no chance to win unless the single player screws up, and the course itself isn't exactly that challenging for them anyway. And even if they do screw up, the team of 3 has to be coordinated enough to capitalize on the mistake, which is really hard to do with the timing of the rain cloud and the piranha plant. I like the idea for this game, but it just wasn't programmed well for the team of 3, and relies too much on what happens with the skateboarder. Number 46, Coin Shower Flower. This is a game you will look forward to if you are the 1 player. The reason Coin Shower Flower is so low is because, once again, it's completely unbalanced in favor of the single player, and the single player is heavily rewarded for it. When you can get around 30 coins for a minigame, there is something wrong. What makes this slightly better than Piranha's Pursuit is the fact that the team of 3 can get some compensation. Just not very much of it. Number 45, Crane Game. Once again, the solo player gets all the glory because they will be the only person profiting from this. Heck, even if they miss, they won't lose any coins, they just won't get anything. This seems pretty unbalanced for the team of 3, and it most certainly is, because losing 1/3 of your coin purse is absolutely stupid. However, at least you have a chance to prevent it from happening. It's still very bad though, and still one of the worst minigames in this game. Number 44, Box Mountain Mayhem. This game is mayhem, but not the fun kind of mayhem. I just don't really like how random this game can be sometimes. You punch a box and you either get coins, you don't get coins, you get tossed in a random direction, or get tossed in a random direction while coins pop out, but then the coins go everywhere, potentially towards your opponents, so it feels like you literally have no control whatsoever here. Easily my least favorite 4-player minigame in this game. Number 43, Bumper Balls. This game was actually in my top 10 the first time I ranked Mario Party 1, but my opinion has most certainly gone down, as you can see. I think while I like the concept of this game, it just doesn't really work that well and often leads to stalemates. I do think this game is improved in the sequel, but in Mario Party 1 there's just not a lot of love for it anymore, at least from me anyway, so I had to bump it down to the bottom of the list. If this game had any kind of compensation for the surviving players, even during a draw, this would have been much higher, but often it just kind of feels like a waste of time these days. Number 42, Pedal Power. Here we have another control stick spinner, but this one is honestly not as bad as the other 2 we ranked. It doesn't last too long, and you are facing a preset Boo AI and not another opponent, which makes it feel more like a test of skill as opposed to a physical hand-burning nightmare. I honestly feel like you don't even need to spin that fast either, but that's very, very subjective depending on the person playing. It's still a bad control mechanic though, which is why this game is still in the bottom 10. Number 41, Limbo Dance. Pretty much the same as Pedal Power, but a lot more reasonable because of no control stick spinning. Also, I can't help but feel like some of the limbo bars can be pretty deceptive with how low they are, leading to some questionable failures. I also just don't find this game very fun either. Number 40, Slot Machine. I used to think this game was luck-based, but there is actually a timing aspect of this game that I was unaware of, which does push it up a little bit for me. However, it's just a slot machine and not a very exciting minigame as a result. Number 39, Pipe Maze. This game has an interesting concept, but it may as well be just a 1-player minigame because the team of 3 does literally nothing here. The single player sets the route and everyone else just waits. And honestly, as someone with not very fast eyes, it's kinda hard as the 1-player too. I think to make this game better, the single player should have also picked some follow-up prizes to be given out as well. Maybe a coin bag or a single coin for 2nd and 3rd place respectively. That might make the game slightly better and more interesting, and add some uncertainty if the solo player can only pay attention to their own pipe. But instead, it's a bit of a snooze fest. Number 38, Ghost Guess. This game is pretty much a free win if you're capable of paying attention long enough. The goal is to select the ghost that is out of place or out of sync with the other boos, and while that isn't incredibly hard to do and does even give you some extra time to figure out the answer even if you aren't sure at first, there are times where I feel like I select incorrectly anyway, even after my best judgment. It's also just incredibly simple and does not have a lot of substance to speak of. Number 37, Ground Pound. This game is a joke. Literally, you can see which posts are the right ones and have plenty of time to fix your mistakes if you do pick wrong. This game is just not very exciting. Number 36, Skateboard Scamper. I'm being a little more generous with this game this time around because while I do think the game is flawed with the ending, I do like how every player is at least guaranteed 5 coins if they happen to grab the coin bag, which is at the same part of the track every single time this minigame is played. The ending definitely feels like a random pick of who wins though, but there is at least a pretty nifty exploit for putting those odds in your favor by just mashing the speed up button at the very end. I'm not giving this game too many props though, as it's still the 15th worst minigame here, but at least it's not a total wash unlike other minigames. Number 35, Coin Block Blitz. This game is coin block boring. You jump and hit blocks, and that's really about it. There's no strategy here. At least you get coins for playing though. Number 34, Deep Sea Divers. This is the worst 2 vs 2 minigame, and honestly, I don't even think it's that bad. It's just kind of dull, there isn't a lot of variation to it, and it also does feature control stick spinning. Thankfully, it's the least utilized amount of it, and only the fisher has to do it, but it's still annoying that it's here, and it's not really that great of a minigame either. Number 33, Knock Block Tower. Cool concept for a one-player game, but it's not very exciting and literally lasts less than 5 seconds. As long as you are patient and know what you are doing, you should win this every single time. Number 32, Memory Match. This isn't a very exciting minigame, but at least it's a challenge worthy of being a one-player minigame, as it judges your memory skill. Much like Knock Block Tower though, it should be a free win and 10 easy coins. Number 31, Shell Game. This is what Ghost Guess should be. It judges your skill by paying attention to how the shells are moving, and I honestly feel like this one doesn't play with your eyes as much as the previous example. With that being said though, it's still an incredibly basic one-player minigame, although it is probably one of the better ones. Number 30, Treasure Divers. This is basically Coin Block Blitz, but in the ocean. There's a little more going on with this game though, which does make it a bit more interesting since you have to not only race other players to certain treasure chests, but also have to avoid the sea creatures as well. It's pretty decent. Number 29, HANDCAR HAVOC. I think HANDCAR HAVOC is honestly a pretty solid game. I think the only time you'll be at odds with this one is if your opponents are much better at button mashing, or you and your partner are prone to falling off the sides, the latter of which could be the result of your N64 control stick not acting optimally. As a result, there could be some issues with this one, but as a 2-player racing game, I don't think it's too bad. Number 28, Tightrope Treachery. Here's a game that I actually kind of grew a bit of an appreciation for over time. I do think it can be pretty long and drawn-out experience, and the single player does get an advantage here for sure, but I don't think it's impossible for the team of 3 to get their act together and put pressure on the lone tightroper either. Once you lock down your opponent, it's just a matter of trying to stun lock them and working with your teammates to hold them up as long as possible. Heck, even one of the players can try shooting the rope below to shake the ground they are walking on to add just a little bit of friction. The hardest part is honestly the aiming, but it's just one of those things you just have to get a feel for, and I think there is plenty of time to do that. So yeah, I do think this game is much better since the last time I did rankings for this game, but it's still in the lower half, just more mid-tier than low-tier. Number 27, Hot Bob-Omb. This game is honestly fine for what it is. It is definitely punishing for the player who loses, but that's also kind of the point here. There's only supposed to be one loser. I guess the only flaw is that it encourages targeting, which is pretty mean-spirited, but it's not a guarantee unless you know the exact explosion timing. Number 26, Hot Rope Jump. Pretty much an everyone wins scenario, unless someone messes up. Perfect middle-of-the-road minigame, I guess you could say. Number 25, Desert Dash. I like this game and the idea behind it, especially when you are working with human players and you two actually have to cooperate and communicate together. The only problem is that there is literally no additional course variations here. You literally go through the same course with the same thwomp at the same place every single time. Number 24, Bumper Ball Maze. This was a hard game to rank because, well, it's not an official one-player minigame. This is a special unlockable minigame you get from completing Minigame Island, and you can only play it in the Minigame Hut. So when comparing this game to others, it was not obvious where to put it on the list. I chose somewhere in the middle because I do think it's a fine game, and I do think it could have worked as a one-player minigame in some respects, The courses themselves are a bit long though, which is why it was probably kept exclusively as a special case minigame. I also think it becomes a bit too thread-the-needle-like in execution. Number 23, Hammer Drop. This is a pretty standard and fun coin free-for-all, and I feel like it lasts long enough for everyone to get a piece of the pie if they are persistent enough. It can be a little annoying trying to set yourself up for success with everyone else trying to crowd the coin shadows, but pretty much everyone will be dealing with that same problem, and I feel like it's pretty fair to at least get some coins out of this game. Number 22, Grab Bag. I feel like Grab Bag is often seen as one of the more annoying and obnoxious minigames, but I feel like for the way Mario Party 1 is set up mechanically, it kind of makes sense why it's made the way it is. It actually takes the entire game, at that point, assuming you are playing party mode anyway, into consideration, as people with the most coins will likely be targeted over those who have very few. And to me, that makes sense as a logical move if your goal is to ultimately win the game. And if anything, I also feel like Grab Bag is a little more balanced because everyone is on the same playing field as far as controls are concerned. Even if you are targeted by 3 separate players at once, I wouldn't say escaping or evasion is absolutely impossible like Bash and Cash. You just might have to be a little more crafty with your escape and try to turn a defensive play into a more offensive one and grab another player's bag when you're trying to work around them. And just in general, try and make peace with the fact that you will not be flawless in this game. Don't make it about winning, try making it about mitigating the potential coin loss as much as possible. And chances are, you still might be in the lead at the end of the game anyway. I think the only negative for this game, at least in my eyes, is that it does last a bit too long. Otherwise, I'm perfectly fine with it. Number 21, Crazy Cutters. The placement might be a bit surprising if you see the top of this list and any other future lists I do for Mario Party, because these games tend to jive very well with me. I think what puts Crazy Cutters here is that I'm often a bit confused on the nature of the grading rubric for this one. Sometimes it feels like certain movements are more punishing than others, which can lead to a wide array of varying scores when the game is over. Thankfully, in this version, all you need is an 80 to win and get coins, which does help, but I do wish it was a little more lenient at times. Number 20, Coin Block Bash. I'm a bit surprised how much higher this one is compared to its 4-player equivalent, but ultimately, I do think there is a bit more strategy to this one, whether you are playing as the single player or even as the team of 3. The single player is actually more about playing defensive than offense. Only hit the blocks after you position yourself where you are facing away from the other players, and if you are part of the team, keep an eye on the hammer and potentially swipe it when you have a good opportunity to. Number 19, Whack-A-Plant. This is the coin shower flower of one-player minigames. In other words, it's absolutely busted, and you should be getting around 30 coins at least if you know what you're doing. I really like this minigame, and I celebrate whenever I get it because it's a neat little skill-based challenge, and I know it's going to give me a big chunk of change that will help me towards getting the minigame star. But the reality of the situation is, it didn't need to be this rewarding. Maybe if the max was around 20 coins, I'd be a little more fine with it, but 35 plus coins is way too much. That's almost 2 stars worth of income from one minigame, and that's a bit ridiculous. Number 18, Bombs Away. This is what I think bumper balls should be. Less about being aggressive and more about just trying to survive. You don't have to mess with your opponents. You can, but it won't necessarily help you. And even if they last the entire duration with you, hey, they'll get coins as well, and in fact, everyone can. It just makes more sense having your entire destiny in control of your own hands, and well, I like that. The game could be a little more interesting, but I think it improves on that in Mario Party 2. More on that later. Number 17, Mario Bandstand. Much in the same vein as the last one, I like this game for pretty much the same reasons. What elevates this over Bombs Away is just the personal charm that I think it has over it. I do think the conductor's role in this game is a little strange and could have been implemented a bit differently, but I can't complain too much because it still functionally works as well as the other roles. Number 16, Bowl Over. Finding a good 1 vs 3 minigame in Mario Party 1 is pretty difficult, if my bottom 5 wasn't any indication otherwise. Bowl Over, I think, is the best game of this classification, though, for a few reasons. I think it's balanced enough to the point where the single player or team can't take advantage of the situation. There is a bit of strategy involved when it comes to what pins you want to knock over as the single player, and I think the overall idea is just that right amount of silly that I think belongs in a game like Mario Party. It's far from perfect though, and once again I do think Mario Party 2 improved on the formula a lot more, considering the team of 3 can't really win anything in this version. But as a one-try shot for some coins for the single player, with some minor influence from the team of 3 pins, I still think it works as a minigame here, and has always been one of my favorites. Maybe just not a top 10 favorite this time. Number 15, Musical Mushroom. This game is short and sweet, but I think it works for what it is. It's like a game of musical chairs. The anticipation builds for the moment the music stops, followed by the mad rush to the center to obtain and win the reward. It's a nice test of your reflexes and general movement responses to what's in front of you, and I really like that about this game. I do wish it would last longer. Maybe instead of just a one-shot game, it could have had 3 rounds and eliminate a player each round or something, but really only a minor nitpick at best. Number 14, Teetering Towers. I think Teetering Towers is the best one-player minigame in Mario Party 1, and my reasons for saying this are because it's a fair test of skill, while also not being less than 5 seconds like a majority of the one-player minigames. I also feel like it's not only a precursor to some of my favorite platforming minigames in future Mario Party installments, but it's also a tribute to the fact that Mario is, at the core, a platforming series. So a type of minigame of this nature makes sense. With that being said, I wouldn't say this game is groundbreaking or anything, but it does serve some pretty nice thrills, a fair and manageable challenge, and you can even capitalize on some of the coins you can get here to win a little extra. Overall, it's a pretty nice minigame and the best of the one-player category. Number 13, Castaways. This is the last of the control stick spinners, but finally I feel like it's actually used properly here, and not in a way that's incredibly persistent and uncomfortable. This is also another minigame where, if you know what you are doing and can manage to do everything properly, you can easily win 40 or 50 coins from this game. But what balances this out is the fact that everyone is pretty much capable of doing that, and has that same advantage as any other player. You could make the argument that the players on the right have an advantage for first dibs on the biggest pieces of treasure, but you can easily wait until they move before you make your own, since they'll miss some coins while they're reeling their line back in. There may be some adjustment time if you're in a position you aren't used to, and there is a bit of luck involved for optimum coin gains, but it's still a fairly fun and rewarding game to play, and is one of the few times where a player getting 30 plus coins doesn't feel as broken as it normally could. Number 12, Keep Away. The premise of this game is very simple. Work together with all the other players to get the key to the lock and keep the key away from the mechanical enemies. Honestly, the only drawback of this game is that it's way too short and simplistic. I think if they expanded on this concept a little more and made it a little more intense and action-packed, like another game we'll be taking a look at later in this list, this game would be a top 10 pick easily. Number 11, Slot Car Derby. I know Slot Car Derby isn't everyone's cup of tea, and I completely respect and understand that. For me though, this game has the right amount of challenge and skill that's less about speeding your way to the finish line, but more about getting the right amount of finesse when it comes to maneuvering your car around each turn and going as fast as you can without spinning out, and I honestly kind of like that. I know spinning out may feel like a game-ending moment, but it's not completely unheard of to be able to make a comeback either, and once you get a feel for the flow of this minigame, it can actually be kind of fun trying to set new records and optimizing your time for each attempt. Number 10, Balloon Burst. Here we have another racing game, but a very different kind of race this time. There are no finish lines, just a mad dash to see who can pop their balloon first while pressing the A and B buttons in a steady pumping rhythm. I think what makes this game exciting is trying to find and keep that specific rhythm while in a heated contest against the other players, and it remains pretty intense the whole way through with the catchy music and the anticipation of which balloon will reach its explosion point first. Number 9, Running of the Bulb. I alluded to this game earlier when I was talking about Keep Away, and of all those cooperative minigames that exist in Mario Party 1, this one is most certainly the best. All 4 players must take a light bulb down to the finish line while being chased by a giant boo and being assaulted by other smaller boos. One player guides the light bulb while the other players punch the ghost to protect that player. Any player that gets touched by the smaller boos will become possessed and either go after the player with the light bulb or will go straight to the big boo if they have the light bulb. You literally have to work together in this one to reach a common goal, and it's honestly a pretty fun minigame as a result. It can be a little annoying if one player decides to screw it up for everyone else, and in a high-stakes game, that can be a strategy, but I do think the developers had the right idea for a team-based minigame, a minigame variation that gets pretty well optimized in the future Super Mario Party. Number 8, Platform Peril. I've always been very back and forth with this minigame, but on the whole, I think it's a solid addition, and I really like what they did with it for Mario Party 2. More on that later, obviously. For its original rendition, though, my only complaint is that it is pretty basic, and the triangle wall impediments can result in a loss if you get an unlucky enough pattern, but I do like the amount of skill that's involved with getting the right and early enough jump and potentially grabbing a couple of coins along the way, if you aren't necessarily hoping for a win here, or if you just want to increase your winnings even more. Number 7, Bobsled Run. Bobsled Run is not quite the king of 2 vs 2 minigames in this list, as there is one game I personally like a bit more, but I'd say that this one is on average extremely solid. You race down a slippery slope on a bobsled trying to beat the other team to the goal, and it's actually pretty intense and fun to have that back and forth with the other team while also trying to sled down the hill optimally and be the first team across the finish line without falling off along the way. I find it's incredibly well balanced, and the rubber banding that you'll experience with the other team isn't as annoying as it is in a game like Mario Kart, for example, as the team in front can pull some defensive maneuvers if they feel like the other team is going to push for the lead. Even the beginning of the game, which has a button mashing contest for the head start, doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things either, and is rather just a fun little bonus touch to the game. I honestly could see people ranking this game even higher, and I even thought about it over some of the next picks I made, but number 7 isn't too shabby of a placement. Number 6, Buried Treasure. The last time I ranked Mario Party 1, this game was number 2 on my top 10 list, but I have since decreased it a couple of placements because of one giant flaw I have with this game, and that flaw is the luck-based element of finding the treasure chest. Due to how small the field is, a player can randomly find the treasure chest without a single hint being discovered, which makes the final result kind of a toss-up than actually skill-based. And I can understand that being a significant nitpick for some people, because sometimes players might be depending on that minigame win to advance their own placements in the standings. With that being said though, I do really like the idea of this game, and I think other Mario Party games use this type of minigame idea pretty effectively, as it essentially is treasure scavenger hunt, which I think are pretty fun concepts. I think this game could easily be the best game in Mario Party 1 if the field was a lot bigger, there were more hints to point in the right direction, and maybe if there were more coin rewards to give out for players who may not be able to find the grand prize. It's got a ton of potential though, and has always been one of my favorites despite its flaws. Number 5, BOMBSKETBALL. Bobsled Run may be the most balanced 2 vs 2 minigame, but BOMBSKETBALL is and has always been my favorite 2 vs 2 game in Mario Party 1. I don't know what it is, but just the idea of playing basketball with a bob-omb has just always been one of those wacky concepts that could really only work in Mario Party, and I do think the 2 vs 2 format for this game works pretty well, since basketball is a team sport. However, there is one major issue with BOMBSKETBALL, and this issue alone prevents BOMBSKETBALL from getting any higher and potentially being the best minigame in Mario Party 1. It only lasts for 1 goal and will probably only last for 5 seconds, and that's a real bummer. Seriously, I don't really see why this game is so short. I'm not asking for a full-length game of basketball here, but since there is only 1 goal, I could see a first to 5 or even a first to 3 type of game working here. Maybe between each goal, the team that doesn't score gets the bomb so they have another chance at offense. It really could be a much more fleshed out minigame, and I don't think it would have extended the time too much either, especially with a first to 3 points contest. Aside from that one major flaw though, I do really love this game, and I think it deserves a spot in the top 5. Let's hope this game at some point pulls a Dizzy Dancing from Mario Party the top 100 and gets extended in a future title. Number 4, Shy Guy Says. When I think about minigames that are often brought up as the face of Mario Party, basically games that are often grouped together in promotional material for the game, 2 games that often come to mind are Bumper Balls and Shy Guy Says. Unlike Bumper Balls, which scored pretty low in this list, Shy Guy Says is a game that I do actually really enjoy playing. It's a very simple test of raise the correct flag when Shy Guy orders you to do so, his patterns getting faster as the minigame goes on, and even with him trying to pull a fast one on you with trying to raise 2 flags at once. It's a test of speed, reflexes, and also patience, and that's a set of skills that I enjoy testing my mettle with others on. Some games of this can go on for an absolutely long time, especially if you are against a player who knows what they are doing, and it can get pretty exciting the longer it goes on. Kind of a mood killer if you both fail in the same late round, or if Shy Guy ends the round too early, but still, at least you can take solace in the fact that you and your opponent gave it your best and honorable passive combat. I will also say that I actually prefer this game over its Mario Party 2 equivalent, but I'll talk about that more in Mario Party 2's list. As far as this list, this game gets very high marks for me, and sits comfortably in the number 4 spot. Number 3, Mushroom Mix-Up. In some ways, you could say Mushroom Mix-Up is very similar to Shy Guy Says, considering both games order you to do something with flags, and you have to respond appropriately before bad things happen to you. I think what gives this game the slight edge is that you do have slightly more control over the situation, literally, when things start to heat up and speed up later in the game. You can also play this game pretty aggressively or defensively, and I do think there are merits to both playstyles here. I prefer the defensive style, trying not to jump unless I absolutely have to, and edge guarding the mushroom when I make it on before others. However, if you want to be that guy who jumps around trying to slow down others or lock their jump button with a ground pound, you have that opportunity to do so as well, at the risk of being out of position yourself. It's a pretty solid game and is honestly probably the best survival game in the entire compilation. Honestly, a pretty solid game for the number 3 position. Number 2, Tipsy Tourney. I told you guys before, I love puzzle minigames where each player is given their own board and their own control over how to manipulate that board, and Tipsy Tourney is no exception here. I think what makes Tipsy Tourney great is that it's just a very quick exercise of skill and overall movement, really testing your ability to maneuver around the board while getting the shell to uncover each of the blank tiles below you. And while I would say there is one pretty optimal route to do this, I wouldn't say it's incredibly free either. You have to be pretty exact with your movements in order to get the shell to follow your path exactly, or at least to the degree you want it to hit the other tiles, which means there will be times where the shell may just miss a space, and you have to go back around to do it at some point during your excursion. However, everyone is capable of making that very same mistake, so it also becomes a test of patience and persistence as well. Don't freak out if you mess up, just finish your current movement and route that space in at the end of your sequence in one fluid motion, and you may get the win anyway. Tipsy Tourney was one of the first minigames I played in this game, and since the very beginning, it has always remained one of my favorites. And last but not least, number 1, Facelift. A couple of years have passed since my last minigame ranking, and although I will say the results were a bit closer this time around, Facelift continues to remain at the top of this list and is my favorite minigame in Mario Party 1. Why do I like this game so much? It's just silly fun that makes me smile and makes me laugh. It's one of those puzzle or recreate this to look like this types of games. It features Bowser, my now favorite Mario character of all time. Sorry, Toad. And is also a nice nod to Super Mario 64's title screen. I also appreciate that there are actually a handful of different faces you have to create as well, and while some of them are pretty easy, there are a couple that can throw you off a bit just because of how specific you have to stretch Bowser's cheeks or eyebrows. So 100% is not always assured, and it can be fun to see how close someone gets to the exact face. This game has just always been a standout for me, and even though I do think it gets improved in the second game to be even better, with more than just one face to mess with, for this game, Facelift is my favorite minigame in Mario Party 1. And with that, I have ranked every minigame in Mario Party 1. This was quite the process, and it did honestly take longer than just the normal top 10 and bottom 10 lists I did all of those years ago, especially when it came to splitting literally the tiniest of hairs and picking not just the games at the top and bottom, but especially the sweet chaos of the middle of the list as well, as there were numerous games where I literally felt, yeah, it's okay, with no strong feelings one way or the other. However, this list is now done, and I hope you guys enjoyed seeing my ranking here. I do want to stress again, this is just my opinion, and I'm in no way saying that this is the definitive ranking of all the minigames, just my own personal thoughts. And as we can see from this list in comparison to last time I did this, thoughts can change over time. So in a few years, who knows, maybe Paddle Battle could be my number 1 favorite minigame. It definitely won't be, but the point is, taste can most certainly change. I probably won't ever make another minigame list for Mario Party 1 though, so if they do change, it's probably not going to be archived in this fashion, so just keep that in mind. I do plan to do this with all the other Mario Party games though, going back through all the games I covered already, and also attempting to do the ones I never made lists for as well. If you want to be a part of the discussion for these lists, be sure to join me every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on my Twitch for my weekly Thank God It's Mario Party Friday streams. I'm currently going through all the Mario Party games with about one board per week, and sometimes I work on tier lists that I use to help me create these lists. Although the focus of these tier lists and rankings will be my own personal opinion, getting additional comments from you guys does help me and does give me some additional insight and things to think about. I'd like to thank all of my Twitch followers and subscribers who provided that kind of insight when I made this first ranking video, as it did make the process quite a bit easier this time around, just having an outlet to bounce these thoughts and ideas off of. You guys are awesome, and I look forward to having some additional input and thoughts for the following lists as well, if you are interested. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. This has been SlimKirby, this has been my Mario Party 1 minigame ranking video, and I will see you guys next time for my ranking video for Mario Party 2. Or any other type of list ranking video I might decide to do in my spare time. We'll just have to wait and see. See you guys next time. Later, folks.